Good morning, everybody. My name's Charlene. I'm the Honorary Secretary of the Aga Khan Health Board. I think we are going to get started now. We're a few minutes past 11, so some people are still yet to join. But in the interest of keeping time and letting everyone enjoy their Sunday afternoons, let's start going. So welcome to the Aga Khan Health Board's Mental Health Matters online forum. This will be an opportunity for us all to speak openly about the impact that COVID-19 is having on our mental health. Thank you for taking the time to join us today. We hope that you're all keeping well and staying safe. If any of you have any worries, any concerns, or any questions during this online forum or afterwards, please contact us either by emailing the Aga Khan Health Board email address, calling the COVID helpline whose numbers will be on the slides, or reaching out to any individual board member, and we'll endeavour to get back to you. As you'll see, we've got the Menti slide, so hopefully all of you will have logged onto Menti. If you can type in the code and answer a couple of initial questions for us. In terms of some brief housekeeping, what we would ask is for the next hour, you try and just remain as present as you can. Try not to multitask. It will take away from the key messages that we're trying to deliver. This is a safe environment. This is a confidential environment. If anyone has submitted any questions, or if anyone does have any questions, they will be treated completely confidentially. So please be reassured about that. We also ask that you respect each other's perspectives during this. Everyone's got a different opinion, a different view, especially when it comes to mental health. And all we ask is that this is a safe space where people can talk and express their ideas freely. As we've mentioned before, if you can all please keep your microphones on mute, obviously apart from the speakers. We will be recording this so it can be distributed at a later date to the wider Jamaat. Just in brief, I'm just going to sort of say why we're doing this today. Early research has found that the coronavirus pandemic is very likely to result in increased mental health difficulties in the wider population. The National Council and the institutions have been focusing on positive well-being and support that the Jamaat can engage with. And we've been partnering with all the institutions. And I'd like to just mention that we have representatives from the different institutions here today. So from the Education Board, from the Economic Planning Board, from the Social Welfare Board, and from the Youth and Sports Board. So thank you all for joining. If you have any questions that are more relevant to the other institutions, again, you can either reach out directly to us or contact them directly. From today's online forum, for me personally, there are a few things that I hope you'll take away from this. I hope you'll come away from the next hour feeling supported, feeling that it's okay to not be okay, and feeling comfortable to talk about and accept your feelings. So those are sort of my aims from today. I'm now going to introduce our expert panel. I'm going to introduce them. If you can all say hello, and I'm going to all ask you a quick question before we get started. So first of all, we have Zara Khanji, who's a counselling psychologist in training. She's a member of the Aga Khan Health Board Healthy Minds team, and I'm sure a lot of you will have all seen her on her Mindfulness Monday Moment podcasts. Yanamid Zara, good morning.
Good morning, Charlene.
And can I just start by asking you, how have you been coping with everything that's been going on over the past few weeks?
Sure. Just speaking honestly, I think over the past few weeks, it has been really tough. And I think there's been a lot going on, hasn't there, with, everything changing with our daily routine, working from home, and Jamaat Khana is closing down. And I think, it has been a really challenging time. There have been some good days, but there's also been some bad days. And I think it's really important that we feel comfortable to talk about both of those days.
Thank you. I'd now like to introduce Rina Karadia. She's a family and systemic psychotherapist. You'll also have seen her doing the Mindfulness Monday Moment podcast in Gujarati, and she's the chair of the Healthy Minds team. Morning, Rina.
Good morning, Charlene.
And can I ask you, what have you found the most challenging aspect during this period of lockdown?
So I think the most challenging, like for most people, it has been the uncertainty of what's going on, how long this is going to go on for. As you know, I particularly had a personal difficulty, as in that I was actually stuck in India for a month while I'd gone to see my parents, and the airport shut down and I couldn't come back to the UK for a month, which was quite frustrating, but there was some positives in it as well, to be at home and be with parents and support them. But it was, as I said, quite a mixed, uncertain time, and I'm sure everybody else is feeling that way.
Absolutely, and it's good that you saw the positives in that stressful period as well. That's really important. And we've got Dr. Hamid Al-Hajj, who's a consultant psychiatrist. He's a senior lecturer and director of medical education, and he is a member of the Aga Khan Health Board for the Healthy Minds team. Morning, Hamid.
Good morning, Charlene.
And how have you been feeling during this time?
Well, I'm feeling very well today, thank you.
Good.
As I work for the NHS, we have been experiencing a lot of challenges and pressures due to the impact of COVID-19 on people's mental health and physical health. And also a number of staff members have been affected by it, so they have been off sick. I have actually had time off due to COVID-19 symptoms. But overall, I would say we are coping well, and the NHS has proven to be very resilient.
Excellent. Well, without further ado, I'll hand over to the expert panel who can get started with the presentation.
Great, thank you, Charlene. Mental health awareness is particularly important to address as we navigate through this pandemic together. And we expect many members of the Jamaat have been struggling with their mental health. However, they may not be seeking the right support which is available, which is why we're having this session today. So as we're trying to show to you all, it's really important to get in touch with our feelings and realize that we're not alone in feeling this way. It is really important to mention that we're all unique, and it is really helpful to validate our own feelings. I touched on how I've been feeling recently, and yes, it has been tough. It's important to feel able to say this. It's okay to not be okay. It's okay to be open and honest about how things are going for us. And I feel that sort of the critical and judgmental things that we often tell ourselves can be really harsh. Maybe imagine how you'd speak with a friend if they're going through a difficulty, and try and take some of the advice that you'd give to them for yourself. It may also be helpful for you to think about how you're feeling through this time, the good, the bad, and the ugly. If you're able to express your feelings with your friends and family, that's great. If you struggle with this, you might want to write down in a journal how you're feeling, and that can be really helpful as well. So just touching on what mental health is. So mental health, we all have, what's the difference between mental health and mental illness? So with regards to mental health, we all have mental health. Just as we all have physical health, we have good mental health and we have bad mental health. And they go on a continuum. As I said, we have good and bad days. So it's really quite common, especially since we're going through this difficult time, to fluctuate in our feelings. With regard to mental illness, it's really when things, if you're experiencing certain symptoms of anxiety or depression, they may have prolonged over a period of time, and you may need some more support, such as psychological therapy or maybe medication. And just also to add, there's no shame in asking for help. There's so much stigma around psychological therapy, for example, and I know I'm biased as this is my profession, but I feel that, I have personal therapy myself, and I feel that a lot of people can really benefit from having psychological therapy. It gives them a chance to open up about their feelings in a non-judgmental, confidential manner. And also taking medication for mental illness should not be a taboo. If you take medication for diabetes, you wouldn't think twice about it. And this should be the same for mental illnesses such as anxiety and depression as well. A common misconception is that if we talk about anxiety or depression, then it'll make us and other people feel worse. And actually, that's not true. The more we talk about this, the more we realize that we're actually not alone. And just moving on, we'd like to address stigma head on and talk openly about all of the things that people may be thinking about. Mental health difficulties can be overcome, but only if we talk about it. And I think a lot of people in our community and worldwide think about or worry a lot about how other people perceive us. And the first thing, that comes to our mind is, what will people think? What will people think if I say I'm struggling? Or what will people think if I say I need to have psychological therapy or medication? And I feel that all of these worries, if we just spoke about it, we'd realize that a lot of other people have the similar worries to us, and we can try and support each other to get through this time. There's also been another question that's been that's basically sent to us recently, so I'm going to address that now as well. But basically thinking about the bubble about other people seem to be doing better than myself, and I feel stuck. And I feel, that's, it's especially with regards to social media, there's a lot of things online to, to take up a new skill and to learn a new language, and to say, to cook the most fabulous biryani, for example, and then people post it on social media and say how good they're doing and how happy they are. And we're going through a crisis situation, and I think it's quite common that other people actually aren't feeling as happy as they portray themselves on social media to be. It's not very common for us to say on social media that actually we're struggling. So I think it's really important to remember that on things that are portrayed on social media may not be a true representation of what's going on. So I think it's so important to remember that other people also feel the way that we do, and it's important to feel able to share about it, to share our experiences. And if other people find it helpful to take part in activities or to learn a new language, that's brilliant for them. But I think it's so important for each one of us to truly look at ourselves in the mirror and think about what is right for us. What do I need to do for myself? Whether that's leaving the dishes till later, or cutting myself some slack, letting the children watch a film while I can relax, for example, or having a nap or having a nice bath. I think it's so important to not feel pressurized to keep doing something to get through this time. For you, if you just need to survive through this time, that's perfectly fine, and that's okay. So just also sorry, about struggling, mental health is not a sign of weakness at all. And I think it really takes a lot of courage to come out and say, I'm struggling with something. So please don't think that it's a sign of weakness at all. So just moving on, we're all human, and we're all being tested with many difficulties at the moment. And it's really important that we realize that we're not alone in this. So many of you may be experiencing anxiety, worries about contracting coronavirus, or you may be concerned about a family member. You may have lost your job recently and may be struggling financially. You may be feeling grief. Unfortunately, we've lost many members of our families and loved ones recently, and the whole funeral process that as it's changed recently has been really tough for us. And I feel it's so important to feel able to talk about these things and to validate our feelings. And we may be feeling low in mood, and I feel that if we know that we're not in this by ourselves, that we're all in it together, it can be really comforting and really helpful to share our experiences with others. And just moving on, anyone can get a mental illness. It really doesn't matter. And they're very common. It really, it can affect anyone, whether you're rich or not, whether you're educated or not, whether you're religious or not. And the most important thing to remember is it is not a sign of weakness. If you broke a bone, it's not enough to say, be strong. And that's the same with mental illnesses. If you have anxiety or depression, you can't just say, be strong. You need to get support. You need to have, and we're going to go further. We're going to talk about further support networks out there. We'll discuss them later. But the most important thing to remember is that mental disorders are treatable, just as physical disorders are treatable, and they're manageable. For example, with diabetes, if you have tablets and you have a healthy diet, you can lead a healthy life. And the same is with mental illness. If you have the right support systems around you, you can lead a really fulfilling life. And it's really important to remember that. I'd like now to hand over to Hamid, who will be talking about depression.
Thanks, Zara. I will start by talking about depression as a mental health condition and what we can do to feel better if we are experiencing depression. So we have times when we feel low in mood. Depression as a mental health condition is when the low mood persists for 2 weeks or more, and when it is associated with other symptoms, such as loss of interest in the things that we used to enjoy doing, feeling tired and lacking energy, having difficulty with the sleep. And this could be due to difficulty falling off, as our mind is preoccupied and we are ruminating about all sorts of worries. We may wake up in the middle of the night and struggle to get back to sleep. As for some cases, people can sleep too much, but still without feeling refreshed by the sleep. Our appetite can change and may become poor, leading to weight loss. But in some cases, we eat too much and that's what is called comfort eating. And that leads to increased weight, which may affect our self-esteem and impact on our self-confidence. In depression, we can experience difficulty with concentration and memory. We can sometimes feel hopeless, helpless, and worthless. And that can make us think that life is not worth living, which can lead to suicidal thoughts. So when someone is depressed, they should definitely try to get help. Contacting your GP is a good first step. The GP is likely to offer you support depending on how long you've had depression and how severe the symptoms are. The help includes medication like antidepressants, which are effective. They're proven to be effective. They're usually well tolerated, and they don't cause addiction like many people think. Counseling and psychotherapy are also helpful in most cases, and in particular, there is strong evidence that cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, improves depression. CBT is based on the concept that our thoughts, feelings, physical sensations, and actions are all interconnected. CBT can help with negative thoughts and can stop us from feeling trapped in our vicious cycle. It can help us to deal with overwhelming problems in a more positive way by breaking them down into smaller parts. Social support through a befriending voluntary service can also help. When someone is getting into a crisis, for example, they have intense suicidal thoughts, or they've stopped eating and drinking, they should contact the crisis mental health team or the emergency service. In a small number of cases, hospital admission is required, although in the vast majority of cases, home treatment will be offered and will be arranged where an enhanced support from the community and crisis resolution services is offered. So self-help strategies include moderate exercise. And I understand that it has been a tough time because of the lockdown. We are unable to go to the gym, but certainly we can still exercise, and we can be creative in how we exercise. Probably learning Tai Chi, yoga, and dancing. Our institutions have been offering online videos to learn these. And like Zara said, please don't put too much pressure on yourself. Don't feel that you have to do all of these. But remember, any form of exercise, including few minutes of walk, is a good way to improve your physical health and your mental health. So eating regular healthy meals is also important. For example, eating vegetables and fruit. You should avoid harmful habits like alcohol and smoking. As it is Ramadan at the moment, and you may be observing the fast, please make sure that you drink plenty of water and fluid when you break your fast. Having the support system around you during this difficult time is also important. Please do try to keep in touch with your family and friends. The connection can improve your motivation and help you validate your concerns. Now I'll move on to speak about another group of conditions, and these are anxiety disorders. So I think you agree that we all feel anxious at some point in our lives, and that's normal. If you're sitting an exam, if you have a job interview, and when we are in a lockdown like this, feeling lonely and worried about our health and the health of our loved ones, we would feel anxious. Some anxiety is good, as it helps us to be prudent and cautious and follow the medical advice by washing our hands and keeping our social distance. However, too much anxiety and fear can affect our immune system, can make us feel stressed, and can stop us from doing our normal day-to-day activities. When anxious, we may experience feeling worried and panicky, having palpitation or increased heart rate, becoming breathless, having a butterfly in the stomach, and tense feelings in our muscles. The anxiety becomes abnormal if it's becoming too intense, too frequent, and persistent, and especially when it interferes with our ability to function. So what can we do to help with the anxiety? There are a number of ways to help, and these include breathing exercises and relaxation techniques. These help us to cope and feel more in control. Mindfulness is a way of giving our full attention to the present moment. It can help us with many forms of anxiety. Mindfulness podcasts are available to guide us through this practice. You can also use the app such as Headspace. And thank you to Zara, Rina, and many others for producing those mindfulness podcasts. Physical exercise, for example, is also helpful, like I said, in depression. And taking your daily social distance walk is useful. Talking to people can help with anxiety as well. So now I would like to hand over to Rina.
Thank you, Hamid. Very well explained about the depression and anxiety issues and how we can help ourselves with it. And what I wanted to do was just briefly recap all the self-help strategies that have been mentioned before. And you can do these whether you're struggling with mental health issues or not. But if you're struggling with some symptoms of low mood or anxiety, these will really help you. So I mean, some of them are common sense strategies, but they are quite helpful. So exercising and doing creative activities that you enjoy, although there might be times where you feel like you don't want to do anything because you're feeling down, but it may be very useful to at least try doing a short walk or one of the things that you enjoy. So there might be people who tell you, oh, do some dancing or painting or some other creative activity. But if that's something that you don't enjoy, then that might not help you. So you have to find what you really enjoy and what is creative for you. So you have to find your own creative sense of self inside. Again, eating well and avoiding alcohol or drugs or substance misuse may be helpful at this time, although that may be your go-to approach because you're frustrated or stressed, but it may be useful to keep yourself healthy in terms of eating. Hamid has already mentioned mindfulness podcasts that we have been doing in the last few weeks. There are also lots of mindfulness exercises and meditations available on YouTube, and they're all free. There are some free websites as well, so you can pick and choose what suits you. And I would really invite everyone to try it at least once, because everyone that has tried mindfulness, they would have told you that it is really lovely and does relax you quite a lot. The next bit that you can do is, again, as has been mentioned before, keep in touch with family and friends. Even if you don't feel like it, may be useful to at least just talk to them a few minutes a day. And you can use the medium that you like. You can talk to them on WhatsApp, or you can video chat, or just use plain old phone, whatever suits you, but keeping in touch does make a difference to the day. Again, if you're struggling with your feelings, it's very, very useful to talk about your feelings to whoever you think is going to listen to you. So we have received some questions where some people have said, what can I do if my family doesn't understand it, or how can I explain it to my parents of what I'm going through. So as a parent or a child, or even a senior member of the family, you may be experiencing these feelings, and you may be feeling a little bit shy, you may be feeling a little bit awkward in talking about it. I would say go ahead and try it, see how it goes. When you talk through your heart, your family may understand it, and especially at this time, they will understand that it is a difficult time. But if you feel that the conversation hasn't gone well, you may want to talk to friends. And if you don't have any other options, you can also call us on the COVID helpline and talk to us. But we would really recommend expressing yourself and expressing your feelings. Apart from these suggestions, it may be very useful to take breaks during the day, and also create some kind of routine for yourself, which would help you to manage these days. The other very important tool that's available to us as a Smileys and probably other communities is to take faith-based support. You may find some solace in practicing dua or tasbih with your family members or yourself, or any other kind of faith-based help support that you find useful. We would say please do explore some of these strategies or all of these strategies. You may find a difference. Moving on, there is another thing that I wanted to talk to you is that even though self-help strategies are quite helpful to all of us, but there might be a time where you actually need the support, and just doing self-help may not help. So we want to say to you that actually there is no shame in asking for help if you need support, and we're all here for you. And there are a lot of services, as you can see on this slide. We have some specific services within the Aga Khan Health Board. We have something called the Health Advisory Service, where we have GPs and other medical professionals who would be able to help you answer your questions related to physical health difficulties and general coronavirus kind of queries. We also have the Healthy Minds team. So Hamid, Zara, and myself, we're all part of the Healthy Minds team. We're a specialist team giving specialist help in terms of mental health issues. And we do a lot of trainings and podcasts around it, but you can also call us through IIUK app, through our contact details, or you can contact us on the COVID helpline. Apart from this, there are some other voluntary organizations which are also available in the community. So you can contact your GP, you can contact some of these crisis support services which are mentioned on the page, and you can, these are all really, really helpful services, and they all have their helplines. So you can decide to contact any of them if you'd rather keep anonymous. But we would really request, if you really need the support, please do ask for the help. Now I'm going to hand over to Rosemary Megji, who's the Honorary Secretary of the Social Welfare Board, and she would talk to us a little bit about the support they're providing.
We are helping out in about 5 major areas. One of the kind of greatest areas that we have through COVID-19 helpline is signposting Murids to be able to claim the relevant and right benefits for themselves and their families. Obviously, with losing jobs, that's been quite sort of hand in hand working with the Economic Planning Board to make sure families are supported through welfare state. Our social support volunteers are also supporting our Murids to ensure that they have the access to the right social care. And because of social distancing, all this is now done through telephone. They ensure that any relevant information, Maulana Hazri Imam messages, get to the users, particularly those that are not connected to technology, and check with the social support users on a very regular basis to ensure that they're okay. And if required, signpost them to caterers. There were a lot of our Murids who were reliant on Nandis in Jamaat Khanas and cannot cook for themselves. So we are finding caterers for these Murids who can not just cook, but also be able to deliver to their doorsteps. The circle and day clubs, as you know, are available to anyone that's over the age of 18. So they are also carrying out a lot of activities over Zoom and the WhatsApp app. Again, for those that do not have access to technology, we're keeping them updated with Maulana Hazri Imam messages, and institutional information, and again checking if they need any assistance with food or medicine. In terms of telephone link, we are making over 1,000 calls per week to all members of families who are over the age of 70 that are living with a partner or families. And another thing that we are helping with is ensuring that all our messaging in through Al-Sahar and other comms are inclusive. So we're making sure that messages also include people with neurodiversity issues, and therefore everyone can everyone has access to those comms messages. I'll stop there, but in terms of COVID-19, once we get a referral within 24 hours, we make sure it's referred to the right board member and somebody makes contact as soon as possible to ensure all of those 4 or 5 things that I've mentioned are carried out. I'm going to pass you on to Charlene now.
Thank you very much, Rosamund. Thank you for that. I'm just going to now briefly move on. Thank you so much, everyone, for talking. That was really informative and really insightful. We're going to move on to some questions. But before we do, I'm just going to quickly summarize where we're at. It's completely natural to worry for yourself and your loved ones during this time. This doesn't necessarily mean that you do have anxiety or depression. It's natural to be feeling a bit anxious and a bit more worried than usual at the moment. And what we're going to do now is take a look at some questions that we've been asked and see what we can suggest to help, both in terms of self-help and in getting external support. If you do have any questions, please make sure that you log on to Menti, use the code and submit your questions, and we'll try and get to them. Again, all questions will be dealt with confidentially. So if I could just pass on now, and we'll start with our questions.
Great, thanks, Charlene. So the first question we've received, so I'm worried all the time about getting coronavirus, and I can't seem to stop thinking about it. What should I do? I think the first thing to bear in mind is that you're not alone. You know, we're all going through this, and it's completely normal and natural to feel anxious about what's going on currently. But I think there are certain things that are outside of our control, and there are certain things that are inside our control. You know, the things that are outside our control, for example, government guidelines, things that we need to follow with regard to social distancing, working from home, etc., etc. And I think the more time we spend worrying about those things, you know, it's not very helpful really worrying about things that we can't control. But the things that we are able to control, things that are happening in our own houses, in our own homes, in our own routines, those are the things, if we try and focus on, will try and help us to reduce our anxiety. So, you know, trying to think about things, you know, is it helpful for you and your family to have a routine, for example? Is it helpful to try and factor in some time for yourself every day, whether that's going for a short walk, whether that's being in touch with nature, or, you know, even if it's opening the window and getting some fresh air, that can be really helpful. So I think it's about thinking about things that you can help yourself with. A lot of, you know, we've already discussed all of the self-help techniques, so definitely try and see if that's what you need. But you know, also just having a nap and just pushing that pause button, you know, doing some relaxation techniques, or, you know, having a nap and just really catching up with sleep, that can be helpful as well. There's also something that's called worry time. So basically, if you feel that you're spending a lot of time all day watching the news and you're worrying constantly, that's obviously not very helpful. But if you can maybe just watch the news at certain points of the day to sort of limit your exposure to all of that, that might be helpful. And worry time, basically, if you can try this out and see if it helps you. But basically, if you allocate a certain time of the day for worry, so it might be, for example, between 8 and 9 p.m. And if you worry at any other time during the day, you know, you just tell yourself, you know, I've made an appointment with you, come back later. And during that allocated time slot, you know, you can give yourself that whole hour to worry about everything that you need to worry about. But if it comes at any other time during the day, then you can try and, you know, use distraction techniques or other methods to try and help with that anxiety, to try some sort of relaxation techniques. But obviously, if you feel that your symptoms are lasting for a significant period of time and it's affecting your daily routine with regards to your appetite and your sleep, etc., then maybe you need to get some more support. And please do contact us or other forms of support that Rena mentioned. I'm now going to hand over to Rena for the second question.
Thank you, Zara. So the next question we have is, I'm concerned about my elderly father. He used to be very social, going to Jamaat Khana every day. We try and call him on WhatsApp every day, and he keeps saying he's okay, but he doesn't want to talk for a long time. How can I support him? Right. So this is difficult situation probably for him and for you, because mainly there is a lack of clarity about what is going on with him. It is unclear whether he's absolutely fine, whether he's really fine when he says he's fine, or whether he's actually not fine and not feeling okay, but he's not sharing it. So, I mean, just looking at this question, I can maybe make an educated guess or an assumption that there is probably some loneliness that he's experiencing, or probably a loss of role if he's used to going to Khane or talking to his friends or helping people out. There may be a little bit of loss of role as well. And we know that sometimes parents don't want to share their difficulties with their children because they don't want to worry them. And even though they're struggling, they're still being parents and they're looking after you. So sometimes it is hard to get a person to talk when they don't want to talk, but you may want to use different mediums of communicating with them, like via phone or video chats, or if it's possible to talk to them via dropping off food, like at a social distance. If you're dropping off food and you're able to catch up with them for a few minutes, that may be a good solace for them. You could also get younger children or grandchildren join the calls to cheer him up. However, if you still feel that the dad is not talking, you may not be able to help him open up. You may want to link him with his local circle club for his Jamaat, or you may want to get some of his friends to call him, and it's possible that he may open up to them. You may also want to encourage him to watch these Tai Chi videos and mindfulness videos and dance videos that are all being put up now on Al Saha every day. And you may want to help him to find a routine for himself. You can discuss it over the phone. He may not discuss how he's feeling, but he may discuss his routine with you, and that may be able to help you to guess whether he's doing okay or not. You may also want to do prayers together on the video chat if that's possible, and that may be one way of including him in the family activities. However, if none of these things work, you may also want to give us a call on the COVID helpline, because sometimes some situations are difficult, and it's possible that one of the social welfare board members or one of our team members is able to give them a call. But I just want to acknowledge again that some situations are hard, and there are no straightforward answers to these situations, but we can try our best and use a lot of different ideas to manage these situations. I'm going to pass over to Hamid now for the next question.
Thanks, Rina. So I'm reading the question. I'm worried about my partner who has lost his job. He's sitting around at home all day, and he started drinking alcohol during the day, and he's getting angry with our children. Do you have any advice for me? Well, first of all, I would like to thank you very much for asking this question. We know that alcohol is associated with stigma in our community, and that may prevent us getting the right help and support. In the case of your partner, it appears that drinking was his way to cope with a highly stressful situation of losing his job, which may have left him feel ashamed, low, and probably even worthless. Alcohol is not a good way to cope with stress, as itself is a depressant. Drinking usually affects a person's quality of life and relationships, as is in the case of your partner with the children and yourself. But they may not always find it easy to see or accept this. A regular drinker usually experiences physical and psychological withdrawal symptoms, so even if he wanted to stop drinking, it might be hard, as he may experience the shakes, sweating, difficulty with his sleep. So if you're concerned about your partner's drinking, a good first step, I would advise you to make contact with the GP. There's also a drinking helpline, the national helpline that's available. Now, how alcohol misuse is treated depends on how much alcohol the person is drinking. And treatment options include counseling, self-help groups, talking therapies such as CBT, which I mentioned before. But also the need for medication can sometimes be required. The other things that we need to think about here, getting help for the loss of role and loss of income in the case of your partner. So see the government advice with regard to claiming benefits or income. You can also contact the Economic Planning Board and the Social Welfare Board for advice, such as what Rosemeen mentioned. They're receiving lots of calls and they're providing support for people in the same situation as yourselves. We in the Healthy Minds team are happy to speak to you and your partner to see what else we can help you with. Please contact the coronavirus helpline. It's completely confidential and non-judgmental, so please consider contacting us. Now, I think Rina wants to answer the next question.
Thank you, Amit. Right, the next question is, I have a close friend who has passed away from coronavirus. I wasn't able to attend her funeral and I'm feeling guilty and very, very sad. What should I do? Again, this is a difficult situation. I want to say that it is quite normal to feel some of these feelings that you're feeling. As you might be aware or may not be aware, there are lots of different stages of grief and bereavement that we pass through when we lose somebody who's close to us. So there may be feelings of denial, anger, sadness, guilt, and then later on acceptance of what has happened. But everyone's journey is quite unique. If you have feelings of guilt or low mood over a significant period of time and they're not going away, then you may need to consult professional help via your GP. You can also alternatively contact charities like CRUISE, which is a specialist charity for bereavement. You could also contact us on the COVID helpline. But in terms of strategies of how to cope on your own, it may be very important to acknowledge your feelings of what you're really feeling. If, like you've said that you feel guilty and sad, but there might be some other feelings which are underneath these feelings. So there might be confusion, there might be helplessness, there might be some very blank feelings, there might be anger for losing your loved one. So it may be very important to acknowledge with yourself about how you're feeling, and then it may be useful to talk to some helpful family and friends who are able to listen to you. And often when people listen to you, some of these feelings you're able to process them better. You may also want to use faith-based help, which is available from ITREB, from Mukhi Kamraz. I wanted to add that sometimes what happens is when we first experience bereavement, we become quite blank and stuck, and we're not able to experience anything. We may not grieve. That sometimes happens, but if that continues for a long time, it may mean that you have not accepted what has happened, or you may be struggling to process it. Again, in this case, you may want some professional help. However, I just want to, towards the end, acknowledge that it is a difficult time. You need to be okay with yourself. You need to, like Zara and Hamid have mentioned, be easy on yourself. And some of these feelings are quite normal. They may go on for weeks and sometimes for months. The other thing I want to add very quickly is that if because of the bereavement and grief feelings, your mood has gone very down, and you notice that your mood, the mood doesn't improve for a good few weeks, and you feel like you are experiencing some depressive symptoms, that is another time to seek professional help. The professionals may be able to do some CBT or via medication to help you a little bit to improve your mood. And once your mood is better, you may be able to cope with grief better. So hope these ideas help. I think the next question is not on the screen, but I think Zara was going to answer that question.
Yes, thanks, Rena. We've just received a question today. So a family member is supporting a friend through their long-standing mental health difficulties, but is struggling. What can we do to support them? Okay, I think this is a really good question. A lot of people may feel in this position at the moment. I think in terms of it being a long-standing mental health condition, firstly, really try and encourage the person that's struggling to try and adopt some self-help strategies that we've already mentioned. And if they're able to, or for example, if maybe they're not helping or not working, it may be really important to encourage this person to access support via their GP, to discuss, what's going on for them. You may want to support them to see their GP, or you may also want to give us a call, and we can discuss on a one-to-one basis and maybe offer some more advice and signposting more specific to what the person's experiencing. But I can really appreciate how when we're trying to support someone that we care about, it can often be really tough and really difficult, and sometimes we may feel a bit helpless and not sure how to help. But please do either encourage them to speak with their GP, or you can contact us and we'd be happy to discuss it offline. Thank you. We've just received another question. Let me just read it out here. Okay, so I'm very nervous and anxious about going out with my elderly parents, and I'm worried that they might catch the virus. We're in lockdown, and I'm concerned about the family's physical and mental health. What advice can you offer us? I think, it's really good that you've asked this question. I think many people may be echoing this as well. But just sort of thinking about, if you do live with elderly parents and you're worried about giving it to them, I think there are some practical things that you can do when you are out and about, limiting the amount of exposure that you do have to the outside world, firstly. If you can work from home, I think that's brilliant. If you do need to go out for shopping, etc., I think, try and carry hand gel with you, some gloves with you if you can, potentially cover your mouth if you have a mask or you have a scarf that you can wear when you're in contact with people. Try and keep social distancing, so 2 meters apart from other people. And as much as you can, try and limit the contact around other people. I think that's the first thing. And other things that you can adopt when you come home. So, make sure that the first thing you do is you wash your hands. Really try and be really aware of how quickly the virus can spread. I think that's really important. And also, discussing with your elderly family members about it, and really trying to encourage them to also take part in good hand hygiene is very important. And other things that you can do with regard to nutrition, having a balanced diet, having enough vitamin C, all of these things, drinking enough fluids, all of these things can be really helpful. So that sort of covers the physical health side of things. But thinking more about the psychological aspect of things, I think the more you can discuss how you're feeling with your family, the better. So if you can discuss with your elderly family members, what's going on for you, and to try and just be open and honest about the fact that, you're going to be limiting the amount of times that you go shopping. So maybe it's important to try and buy, things in one go if you can, or twice. Try not to go out every few days for shopping if you can. And maybe it's about trying to explain this to your family members so that they feel able to know the reasons why you're doing certain things, because they may not fully understand. There are also Gujarati videos that will be put out soon for our seniors, so that may help them to understand as well what's going on. Just having a look to see if we've got any other questions. I think I'm going to pass over to Hamid to take the next question.
Thank you, Zara. So there was a question. As a frontline nurse, it's hard to make decisions on returning to work after a positive COVID swab. I have a vulnerable with me, anxiety to return next week. Thank you. So I think the issue here is that if you've tested positive for COVID, as long as you have symptoms of COVID, you shouldn't go back to work, and the employer will be fully supportive of understanding of this. I don't know whether your vulnerable one who lives with you has been tested or not, but I think most NHS trusts are offering tests for people who live with NHS staff who have been positive. So check with your employer about this. So the guidance is that if you are symptom-free, and if you're the person that you live with is negative, probably you can go to work. And most evidence is that COVID doesn't come back. However, there are a small number of cases that have been reported. So although we are not sure, I think it's best to check with your employer. And the other thing, I think if you want some more thorough answer, please contact the helpline, the COVID helpline, and we are happy to discuss that further. Let me see, I think there was another question that I could cover quickly as well. So I'm struggling to talk to people outside my family when going through depressive episode or panic attack. And I'm put on hold for a long time with mental health helplines. I think this is a common problem. People with depression and anxiety, they are worried about the stigma. They are worried about being judged if they talk to people outside their family. And the mental health services, as we know, are pressured with lack of staff and difficulties to meet the needs of the population. So my advice would be, if you have a trusted person to speak to, that would be good outside your family. I think it needs some courage, and please, the stigma shouldn't be the issue here, because we all suffer with difficulties at certain period of time, and particularly when there's a pandemic there. It's an unprecedented time. The other thing I would suggest that, yes, mental health services, are overwhelmed. However, there are charities there who could also listen to your concerns and guide you and signpost you. So, for example, the Samaritans, you can call them. You can call Mind Charity. If you want us to speak to you, we are more than happy to do so. And the Social Welfare Board is there. We provide confidential, non-judgmental support. So please feel free to speak to us. I'm not sure who wants to answer the next questions. I can see that there are lots coming at the moment.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to take over now. I think we're nearly reaching the end of today's online forum. I apologise, there are a few more questions which we've not had the opportunity to take, but I want to make sure that we do finish on time. If you have a question that's not been answered, please either put it on Menti with your email address. Again, it's confidential, no one else can see it. Or if you feel more comfortable, please email us and we will get back to you with an answer to your question, or we can have a telephone call to discuss. Just before I finish off, I just want to direct you all back to Menti, please. We have one final question just for some feedback on today's online forum. It's just one question, if you don't mind answering that, just so we get a better idea. And we have had a question about whether we will be doing these more regularly for more ongoing support. If that is what you would like, and if you feel that would be useful, please do let us know, and we can definitely put something in place for some more regular support. And before I go, I would like to thank you all for joining. Thank all the speakers for participating in the panel and for answering the questions. I would again like to just mention we do have individuals representing from other boards and institutions here. And if I can flag up, the Education Board has Wise Wallet podcasts, they've got budgeting podcasts. Financial insecurity can lead to mental health challenges, and we've got Education Board representatives here. So if there are children or parents who need additional support, please get in touch with Education Board. Again, Youth and Sports Board for youth and young adults for additional support, for some mentoring assistance, and you've heard from Social Welfare Board. We're all here, we all work together, and we all want to support each other during this very difficult time. So once again, thank you all so much for joining. Please fill in Menti, and please add in any other questions if you've got them, and we will try and get back to you. But thank you very much, and I hope everyone gets outside and can enjoy the sunshine for a bit.